We are all familiar with Destiny raids, a staple of the endgame in Destiny, and sometimes the gatekeeper of the shiny exotic we all long for. But what are Destiny's hardest raids? Well, in today's video, we will be exploring the top 10 hardest raid bosses in Destiny history. Please remember, this video will not be based on what we got when we were power crept, instead when these raids were at the height of their difficulty. Once again, this is my subjective list, therefore please leave a comment if you disagree or agree on anything, and let's get into it. At number 10, I have to say Orix. I don't really know if I want to say specifically Destiny 1 was much harder than the Destiny 2 version, so how about Orix in general, I guess? Orix remains as the first ever last stand in Destiny, and in D1 he was a monster putting fear into every team. The Dome fighting the Echo alone was a lot to take on, and then the Ogres were a major concern too, and when Bungie brought this raid back, it gave us new and improved mechanics. But honestly, the mechanics did get harder, killing a Light Eater Knight every 2 seconds across the room, the ad density got way worse, and you had to coordinate and communicate who was torn and what plates to step on a lot more than you ever did in Destiny 1. The worst part is easily the nuclear missiles he launches as his health gate though. These will murder you, but for those reasons, Orix will be leading off this list. For our number 9, give me Nezarec. I know this boss is the most soloable on this list for sure, but that's nowadays. Nez mechanically is kind of a beast, not to mention he's a huge tormentor chasing you around and throwing purple void at you. His crit spot is super hard to hit, and with a team, you need a ton of communication for safety pools, light and dark, and shooting the right spot on him. Also, during this fight, the ad density is gross, especially for the runners. I feel sorry for anyone who got blinded by the Colossus of Hell spawning from nowhere. Also, I brought up the boss's crit spot, so why does the boss move so erratically, and why does it throw off his crit so much? It's not that this is the hardest fight, I just think it's one of the most engaging fights where you are always watching yourself. So number 8 is going to go to Atheon, and I already hear the comments, oh Lidworth, Atheon is easy. Okay, so for the first raid ever in Destiny, imagine being bad at the game, clueless on mechanics, and underleveled. Ads were again the hard part here. After getting 3 random players teleported into left, Mars or Venus on the right, inside needs to grab a relic, kill a mini Hydra, and then shoot all the oracles while evading attacks from the other ads inside. Outside needs to open the portal while standing in a circle while getting rushed by supplicants that one-shot you. Inside you need to kill 9 total oracles, and then you can come out and do DPS. But instead of 6 people, you need 5 people for DPS, because one person has to hold the relic so you don't wipe or die to the ads and boss surrounding you and blasting. Bro, pause, what? Anyway, you get infinite supers for a bit, but remember, Galley was also a thing, and Galley could actually, well, make you die because like the relic shield was being held up, but it also just melted this boss. After this, get out and do it again. There was a cheese to push him off when grenaded. Sure, you could damage him outside of the DPS phase, but still, it was rough when it came out. I will talk more on the cheesing of bosses at the end of the video, so stick around for that. And before we keep going, real quick, if you do enjoy, please stay till the end and let me know your list in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. And if you do enjoy, please drop a like and a sub on the channel. It's the best way to support me and let me know you enjoy the content. Let's go for 100 likes on this video. Thank you so much for the support recently, and back to it. For number 7, give me Insurrection Prime from Scourge of the Past. This boss fight was actually one of my favorites, and he reused mechanics from throughout the raid, so you had some direction here. The whole issue here was the mass communication needed. You needed map readers, Berserker, and CAP, PAC, CPA, any of these letters. We all know CAP is GOAT though. And you need to shoot off his shield. To do this, you needed to shoot a weak spot at the same time of someone on the opposite side. Actual coordination. As well as this, during DPS phase, remember the buff you have switches. So you need to be with anyone that has the same buff as you. And be on the lookout for people that don't know where to go and hope you aren't crossing paths with anyone. Also, I did not mention, my man is not confined to one spot like other bosses. This dude looks and shoots where he pleases, just like his sniper vandals that may have been the most annoying part. Number 6 is Axis. I don't think I need to say anything about this really, but this fight was super intense for Destiny 1. I'm going to include both part 1 and part 2 in this ranking since it really was one boss, but to me, I think this was the most mechanically involved raid of Destiny 1, and for this reason, it cemented itself as a goated raid. You had 3 teams of 2 split up rather than the usual large groups, but you would split up and each would get empowered on one side. You would communicate for cannons, balls, orbs, and empowerment to stun the boss. The window to stun him was also pretty small, so you needed to be ready while your team was damaging and calming. In part 1 though, the orbs alone were the hard part. Getting all 7 just due to poor communication or anything like that, if one little thing it went wrong, it had potential to throw the entire attempt. Number 5 is a raid that has sadly been forgotten, the Crownbearer Galron. The main mechanic of this is the buff balancing. This involved a blessing buff that you need to trade between players by shooting a crystal, and this required more communication than you may think, because you actually need to shoot it at nearly the exact same time. This would transfer the buff, but outside of that, Galron is constantly blasting you, adding to the pressure of the ad density. With the ads, you could only damage certain ones, meaning you needed the Witch's Blessing buff for some and no buff for others, meaning ads could hit immune at times, so you had to rely on your team. Also, you had a Galron deception chase you around, and you needed to get Galron to kill his own deception. This was done by baiting him up top and having Galron slam down his hand, but the main issue of this raid was the constant switching of buffs and communication needed there. Coupled with the ad density and deception, Galron was kind of a crazy boss at the time. Number 4, you guys may have forgotten about. This is Val Calor. If you started playing Destiny anytime after Beyond Light, you won't even know this raid. For a while, Spire of Stars was deemed the hardest raid in all of Destiny, and it had a great boss fight for this reason. The now sunset raid Spire was a beast. Remember, this was year 1, so we still had double primary. It was pretty cool though because 2 reasons. You threw a ball at each other and you would fly into space and destroy ships. The ad density here was also pretty tense. Coupled with that, you needed to stand on plates, and this boss was a real challenge for players. You had to communicate things like the superior retainer buff, ship callouts, and final stand. This was one of the craziest final stands and gave players so much anxiety. He would spray out a bunch of balls and you need to throw them back at him, and those alone wouldn't be enough at the time. Due to the ad density, you'd spread out teams for DPS, one left, middle, and right. This means whoever the boss was focused on, that team would have a harder time hitting his crit spot since it was behind him on his jetpack. Even running out for final stand, if the boss wanted missiles to rain down and one-tap you, he would do it. The amount of caution and teamwork in this boss fight was just insane, especially for the time. Now, for the first of the big 3, at number 3, we have the Witness. Of course, we have to include the most recent final boss, as the Witness was, and still is, pretty insane. Even now, we still struggle with it. I feel like I've mentioned the ads in every other spot on here, but yeah, it remains on here too. Even with Prismatic, the ad density is still insane. The captains, dread pulling you, subjugators are all a pretty big challenge. As for the mechanic itself, it's not too hard. The worst part is having to communicate what shape you need to make once the Witness does his wipe mechanic. Let's talk about DPS for a second though. This is the first boss in Destiny that did DPS like this and could one-shot you. The boss's integrated attack patterns are the real run killers here. You need to move while DPSing. This is basically unheard of, by the way. If you got greedy even a little bit, you are pretty much dead. Like I said, the mechanics are not too hard. You just shoot limbs and buttons, but the main issue here is probably the DPS. On top of this, I'm pretty sure for final stand, this is the most DPS we've ever needed for a final stand. Even with Stillhun being at the peak of its power, this fight was still a massive issue, mainly due to the ads coupled with the DPS mechanic. Number 2, I know some of you have been waiting for this, but it's going to go to Rolk. I will say, I think this is the most annoying DPS phase in the game. You thought Witness was hard? Rolk would kick you in the face and feel nothing in remorse. Also, compared to the Witness's massive crit spot, Rolk is a subjugator. You need a divinity for precision weapons. A lot of communication was needed for this, balancing buffs to start and then slowly decreasing Rolk's aura so you could actually deposit into the mechanic. Needing to know how to share what each buff gave you and all 27 symbols that I still don't know. Once you got up the stairs though, you were not done. Then you still need to pay attention to symbols, communicate it while still dodging the boss chasing you around. This phase also required emanating force, meaning you need to know what buff you have and be able to adjust to what you need. The boss has crit spots to destroy, and you can finally DPS a moving boss with a tiny head. And then for final stand, it is a tight window. While your screen goes black, you pump out as much DPS as you can while he is moving around and teleporting. The hardest part of this is the constant mechanical engagement coupled with how much this boss moves. It makes it an insane fight even nowadays. Before we get to the number 1 spot, here are a few honorable mentions that didn't make the cut. Shirochi, The Timer, Crota, Destiny 2, cool changes. Taniks, mechanically inclined. Now for the number one spot, I'm sure no one is surprised, it's Riven though. Real quick, I don't care if you say, oh, well, we cheesed it. Yeah, so every boss in the game could probably be cheesed at some point. We've got to be talking about the mechanics in this though. You have to do mechanics the entire time. Riven is the most mechanical boss ever in Destiny. On top of this, it is probably the most communication needed for one raid. Things like eyes part 1, the right symbol when in the rooms, eyes part 2 up top, and on top of this, DPS is not a joke. It's pretty rough with the ads, and Riven was constantly changing up. And for the eyes, if you shoot one wrong or explosive payload damages the wrong one, you die. And the best part, mess up any of the smaller mechanics, you probably wipe. Final stand then brings us to the hardest final stand ever. Not for the DPS. The DPS is fine, but the parkour with taken phalanxes, not cool by the way, Bungie, trying to push you off as you go up top. You play only up while avoiding dying, but once the boss is dead, you still need to have enough time to run inside and blow up a taken orb, acting as the heart. For those reasons, Riven legit is the hardest boss in the game, even holding up till this day. I could technically say Queen's Walk is included in this too, but for the sake of video, I won't say that. Anyway, please let me know if you violently disagree or agree in the comments. Quick thank you and shout out to all of our community members. It seriously means the world. If you'd like to become a member, I'd really appreciate it, starting at $2 a month. So not necessary at all, but please subscribe if you did enjoy. Let me know if you'd like to see any more rankings similar to this one. Thank you all so much for making it this far in the video. Thank you again to our channel members. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.